premature to put much faith in, quite frankly, my friend. 570 miles southwest of New Orleans. Now, one hint as to where a tropical system is heading toward. The National Hurricane Center will list that site as an area that should be watching for the potential for approach of this thing. So, as opposed to it being 800 miles west of, say, Key West, or 300 miles southeast of Brownsville, the general feeling is that this will drift toward the north. That's why the reference to New Orleans, Louisiana. When it gets there, how strong will it be? Still too early to call. We'll know a lot more on Tuesday when the hurricane hunter actually flies into this thing. And it's hardly a thing right now. Just a lot of showers in here. We believe that the upper level, those strong winds will lessen too, which would make this area more favorable for development. So, Hurricane Danielle slowly moving away from land. Tropical storm Earl slowly moving toward the United States. Meanwhile, overland here in the United States, we've had some problems with flooding here in...
On the storm watch on this Tuesday morning, active weather into the tropics with a tropical storm Earl. We'll talk about what's left of Danielle as it moves out further into the Atlantic Ocean. And we're looking also at some thunderstorms into the Midwest on this Tuesday, September 1st. Looking at Earl, we can tell you where the storm is as of 4 a.m. this morning. Earl at 22.5 north, in case you're plotting, and at 93.6 west, or 570 miles southwest of New Orleans, Louisiana. The winds now in the storm at 40 miles per hour, moving nearly stationary, and a very small storm now, but in a very interesting looking storm. Now, if you were to look at the satellite on an infrared shot, you would think that the storm is actually here, but it's not. The center of the storm is more so around here, with a large area of convection into the Gulf, pushing towards New Orleans and pushing towards the northern edge of the Gulf, and another area of convection south of the center, but still a very unique looking storm. The Hurricane Center sending reconnaissance planes out into the storm to see its exact eye and its center later on this morning around 8 a.m. Eastern time. With this storm, we are seeing warm water over the Gulf, so there could be development. Still a very slow moving system that is tracking slowly, or eventually will track slowly towards the north. Now, looking at what's happening with Hurricane Danielle, the storm continuing to move now towards the west. It's at 32.2 north, 72.5 west, or 455 miles west of Bermuda. Winds with Danielle at 100 miles per hour, moving towards the northeast at 12 miles per hour, so away from the coastline and pushing further into those colder waters of the Atlantic Ocean, which is good news. And Danielle doing what forecasters expected to do, to move towards the U.S. coastline and then move outwards to sea and not cause any threat to land. The storm still looks like it's close to the coast of portions of North and South Carolina, still farther out into the ocean, and not really seeing any effects from this storm right now. Danielle, not nearly as big a storm as Bonnie, as they both move out towards the same direction now, away from the United States. But with that, things are looking much better and nicer into the East Coast. After one storm, at least, there won't be another one to deal with from the Atlantic. But Earl is still a different story, and still time will tell if Earl will move inland and make landfall. And we'll have more coming up at 6 o'clock with Jim Cantori in the Gulf, or near the Gulf of Mexico. Now, looking at the Caribbean, we are seeing some other areas of convection into Central America, and a few short waves coming across from Africa, but still kind of quiet systems right now, nothing too significant, but always being watched by the Hurricane Center. This is the time of year when hurricanes do start to increase in strength and move across the Atlantic into the Caribbean Ocean. We are seeing some little areas of convection that are being watched, but nothing significant from these right now. And looking over into Africa, we are seeing some waves coming off the coast of Africa and pushing out into the Atlantic Ocean, starting their trek across the warm waters of the Atlantic. And one small area of convection pushing towards the west, and another one just coming offshore. And that'll be the story for this time of the year, and will continue for the next few months. And then looking at the Pacific, we're seeing some other areas of convection here too, worth watching. No storms from these systems as of yet, but watching the Gulf of Tehuantepec, we could have a major disturbance into that region towards Mexico and Central America. Another area of convection that was larger, pushing out into the colder waters of the Pacific Ocean. Looking at a bigger view of what's happening with Typhoon Rex into the Pacific, the other side of the Pacific, moving away from Japan. So that's good news for the Japanese as this storm slowly makes its way towards the east. And you can see the well-defined eye with Hurricane Typhoon Rex slowly tracking away from the island of Japan. And what this storm will most likely do, forecasters are saying it should move around about 5 days from now and become thunderstorms and showers into portions of the Gulf of Alaska and into Alaska. Now look what's happening on the mainland. Thunderstorms along the coastal region tonight through midnight, also into the southwest and into southern Illinois and into portions of Indiana. We're seeing some active storms now into northern Missouri in between St. Joseph, around going towards St. Joseph and over towards Jefferson City, and just north of St. Louis towards Quincy and Hannibal. And we're seeing some active and heavy thunderstorms from this system right now, more so moderate to light showers into the Gulf from a diffluent flow, not from Earl, but some showers north of that system that's coming into portions of the Panhandle of Florida, into extreme southern Alabama, into Mississippi, and also into Louisiana. We're seeing some showers into Arizona, also into portions of Utah, Colorado, and into New Mexico. Here's our area of low pressure and our frontal boundary, bringing those heavy thunderstorms into northern Missouri. Stay tuned, more coming up on Weather Center.
All this atmospheric energy coming together.
Drama, passion, suspense, tropospheric undulations. Every night on Weather Center PM.
On your marks. Get set.
Is this how it feels at the airport gate?
School employees, professional and support staff work together to provide much more than the 3 R's. They shape children's lives. Through innovative teaching, members team up to meet the diverse needs of all our students. We take pride in our schools and the role we play in educating our youth. The Mercer County Education Association, in our schools every day, promoting excellence.
Worried about traffic tie-ups on your way to work? Well, don't worry. Tune into New Jersey 101.5 FM radio. We've got traffic reports every 15 minutes around the clock. And how about the weather? Rain or shine, we've got the forecast. Tune into New Jersey 101.5 weather reports every 10 minutes, every hour, every day. And watch the New Jersey 101.5 morning show, weekdays from 6 to 10 a.m. right here on CN8, the Comcast network.
Every day is new. We tell you about the weather right now. How will it affect where you're headed? What about your plans? People count on us to get them through the day. I love that.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
And it's time now for your tropical update, and starting with the latest information on Tropical Storm Earl. These are the latest coordinates in from the National Hurricane Center, putting the center of Earl here at 25.4 north, 92.7 west, and that is now about 350 miles to the south-southwest of New Orleans, Louisiana. Maximum sustained winds are now up to 60 miles an hour, and strengthening is likely with this storm in the next 24 hours. Possible hurricane watches may be issued right along the Gulf Coast for New Orleans and also over toward the panhandle of Florida, all the way over toward Houston. Anywhere in this area, don't let your guard down. Stay tuned to the Weather Channel for the latest information as it continues to come to us. The movement is to the north at 6 miles an hour, and that general motion is expected to continue over the next 24 to 36 hours, possibly beyond that. Earl coming closer to the central area here along the coast of Louisiana, which would be bringing in plenty of rainfall and also strong winds. The official forecast from the National Hurricane Center is for Earl to strengthen to a hurricane within possibly the next 48 hours. The pressure is now at 999 millibars, not falling quickly, but we will monitor that also for you. The reconnaissance aircraft flew into Earl over the morning hours and have located the center a little bit farther to the north than what was first believed. So the center of Earl now just a bit closer to the coastline. You can already see some of the high clouds beginning to head across the Louisiana coastline, also over toward Pensacola, as well as Apalachicola, even now beginning to extend near Jacksonville, Florida. Some of the northern convection beginning to die out somewhat, but stronger convection here, and that is a sign of possible strengthening. We are beginning to see that rain begin to spill over Mobile and also Panama City, and it has been on the heavier side at times, over an inch in some areas. We also have Hurricane Danielle still moving away from the United States. However, tropical storm warnings or warnings have been issued for Bermuda. And so we could see some very gusty winds and some pounding surf associated with Danielle. Here's a look at Danielle, again moving away from the United States, possibly kicking up the surf along the coastline, but will not be an immediate factor in the forecast for the U.S., so some good news there. Farther to the south, a tropical wave here near the islands. Pressures have been falling with this, so this is going to be getting our attention as well in the next 24 hours. Stay with us for more.
Tropical Storm Earl is spinning in the Gulf of Mexico, and some parts of the Gulf Coast already feel its effects. Where the storm may be headed next on Weather Center.
Otherwise, it's unstable in the first place across the south. That means anywhere this afternoon with the daytime heating, we could see thunderstorms developing even north of this particular rain shield. And this is a pretty strong front in the upper Midwest. Now, there's not a lot of moisture to work with right now, but winds are piling up the moisture along the front even as we're talking here. Or at least as I'm talking, and then as this happens, we could see some storms developing. But what a grand day across the Northeast. After that front passed recently and that high built in, you're enjoying great outdoor lunch weather, great walking around in the afternoon in your neighborhood weather. Otherwise, still some fog to deal with, and we've got some rough weather going on potentially in the southwest with an upper level.
Watch the wind for a living.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
now for Storm Watch here on the Weather Channel, and it's a day, of course, when eyes are focused on the Gulf of Mexico and Tropical Storm Earl. Meanwhile, Hurricane Danielle, still in the Atlantic, and the possibility of a depression which could form in the eastern Pacific south of the Baja. We'll take a look in just a moment. Here is our tropical update, and we begin with the latest on Tropical Storm Earl. These coordinates as of 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. We'll soon have updated information thanks to the Air Force reservists who are even now checking out Earl in the Gulf of Mexico. At 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the center of circulation was estimated to be about 25.4 north, longitude 92.7 west, or about 350 miles south-southwest of New Orleans. Maximum sustained winds around 60 miles per hour. Earl moving to the north at around 6 miles per hour, and central pressure about 998 millibars. Here's the color-enhanced infrared satellite view, and the center of circulation is estimated to be roughly about here on the west side of this large area of convection. And the western side of the circulation, of course, not very well organized. There has continued to be shearing at the upper levels of the atmosphere. Most of the convection is off to the east side of Tropical Storm Earl. But it is certainly being monitored closely by the National Hurricane Center, and it is out over very warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico. Already rainfall at the northern edge of the rainfall area is producing a widespread rain from New Orleans back over into the Florida Panhandle. Occasionally there are bursts of moderate rain. Biloxi has gotten some moderate rain in the past hour. Panama City has gotten some. But even the persistent light rain is going to be adding up. And here are the radar estimated precipitation totals as of 8 a.m. this morning, 24-hour rainfall totals. And you can see quite common through the region rainfall amounts of 1.5 to 2 inches, in some cases getting up to 3 inches, according to the yellow legend there. Meanwhile, the latest on Hurricane Danielle, and incidentally, of course, at the top of the hour, we'll be going to the forecast center to find out the very latest on Tropical Storm Earl. Meanwhile, Hurricane Danielle making that turn toward the right, and it is heading on out over the Atlantic. This is Bermuda, and the hurricane is well away from Bermuda, but the fringe of Hurricane Danielle could very well buffet Bermuda. Consequently, tropical storm warnings are in effect for Bermuda. At 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Danielle estimated to be about 365 miles to the west of Bermuda. Maximum sustained winds around 100 miles per hour, moving to the east-northeast at around 12 miles per hour with central pressure about 965 millibars. And you can see Hurricane Danielle well to the west of Bermuda, and again tropical storm warnings in effect for Bermuda. Convection here still quite strong, and the strength of Danielle not likely to change a lot over the next 24 hours, but it will ultimately be weakening as it gets out over the colder waters of the Atlantic. Meanwhile, a couple of tropical waves. Now, there is some convection here in the eastern Caribbean, not really organized, but this is a tropical wave just to the east of the Lesser Antilles, and it could be getting itself organized, being watched very closely, and not too far behind it, still another tropical wave, a little bit more down toward the south and east, but it also approaching the Lesser Antilles, and it is being monitored for possible further development. Meanwhile, waves coming off the coast of Africa, and the latest one dissipated pretty quickly, the convection associated with it, but there is an area of convection south of Baja, California being monitored.
Coming up next, the latest on Tropical Storm Earl, plus rain and thunderstorms threaten parts of the southeast and the Midwest. An update on both is next on Weather Center.
At Alamo, the going rate is going down, all the way down to $29 a day.
Don't worry.
And just $21 a day in Florida.
Drive happy.
Is this a fun country or what?
In the southern part of California, scattered showers elsewhere across the southwest, and the dangerous rains because they're going to be wind-driven, and also very high amounts because of Tropical Storm Earl, which could become a hurricane. Otherwise, the good news, very wonderful weather across the northeast and the Great Lakes. That Canadian high built in, and it's feeling very comfortable, but enough moisture building along this front where we could see some thunderstorms and showers continuing to break out. It's a pretty strong front. There's that upper level level low, which brought that severe weather to Southern California yesterday. Right now, it's still bringing some wet weather around the Four Corners. There's a look at that moisture plume coming in from the tropics, from the Gulf of Mexico, producing heavy amounts of rain and flooding, a big concern in the New Orleans area and those other very low-lying areas along the Gulf Coast. There's a look at the rainfall. Traveling not advised along I-10 if you can help it. If you've got an alternate route, because some of these roadways are going to be covered with water. At least there's going to be some ponding of water. And there's a look at the wet weather in the southwest. Otherwise, just hot as can be in California. We've got that sinking air and that upper level ridge in charge. And there's some storms trying to get going across the northern part of the country in Wisconsin.
Now your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Well, we do have 2 tropical storms and 1 hurricane to tell you about. Also, the potential for at least 1 other disturbance to develop and maybe cause us at least some rain, if nothing else, over the weekend. So a lot of things to look at here. Let's start with Earl. That's the closest to the U.S. mainland. Tropical Storm Earl could become Hurricane Earl within the next 24 hours. So this is definitely an important one to watch. The latest stats as of the 4 o'clock Central Time update centered at 27 north, 92.3 west. That's just 240 miles south-southwest of New Orleans and Louisiana. Winds are 60 miles per hour, and it's moving now north-northeast at 12 miles per hour. That's a slight shift from due north at, I believe, 6 miles per hour at the previous update. Pressure is 998 millibars. The reconnaissance has been in to investigate throughout the day today. Take a look here at where the watches and warnings are, and you'll notice that these are hurricane watches and warnings, and it's still a tropical storm. So this is anticipating it increasing in strength through the next 24 hours. It's a watch from High Island, Texas to Cameron, Louisiana, meaning the possibility of hurricane force winds within 36 hours. A hurricane warning from Cameron, Louisiana to Pascagoula, Mississippi. You should be preparing for hurricane force winds within the next 24 hours. And obviously that is expected where the watches are. It's still just a possibility. So from Pascagoula to Destin, it's a hurricane watch. And here on the satellite picture, the one thing you can really see from this, the infrared, is the increase in the higher clouds. So it does look like it's gotten a little bit better organized today. The center is not quite underneath this that would show it's a very well organized system. The center is still off to the west. Upper level winds from the west are continuing to shear it somewhat and keep it from developing as quickly. It may still continue, however, to increase in strength. And we've already had a lot of rain with this one. And at this point, that's the biggest concern, the heavy rain and the potential for some flooding through here. 2 or 3 inches certainly possible already, and this will continue through the day tomorrow and up through landfall, of course. We should see extensive heavy rain. The winds, not a problem yet. The threat of severe weather, not a problem until landfall, but all of that is ahead. Hurricane Danielle took the path right toward the U.S., made the turn as expected. Looping back out, not affecting the U.S. mainland. However, it's 330 miles west of Bermuda, and It will pass close enough during the overnight hours tonight to give tropical storm force winds to Bermuda. So tropical storm warnings are in effect with this hurricane. The tropical storm force winds extend out